In today's video, I'm going to explain how to process shipments in Amazon Vendor Central in 2024. Quite recently, the dashboard and to an extent the process for this has changed. So this will be a useful tutorial or refresher video for anyone who's responsible for processing shipments after completing purchase orders on Vendor Central. First thing you want to do is click on the menu, which has also recently changed. You'll go into orders and shipments. Now, this is presuming you've already followed the process for confirming your purchase orders. It's a fairly simple process. There's a separate video for that if you're interested. But yeah, presuming that you've confirmed your purchase orders, you've told Amazon which products and which POs you're accepting, which you're going to be declining, you're then ready to go and raise your shipments. So we go into the menu, orders, shipments, and you'll be presented with this dashboard here. There's no historic shipments to view on this account, but this is generally where you would see those. The button that you're going to be most interested in is create a prepaid ASN. Now, this is specifically for vendors who are shipping goods into Amazon's FCs, as opposed to vendors who are having their products collected by Amazon. So the former is certainly more common in Europe and in the UK, whereas in the US, it is common for Amazon to be collecting these orders. But in the case of vendors who are sending their goods into Amazon via their own courier, or even they might be using Amazon's freight service for this, you would click on Create a Prepaid ASN. And what you're going to see in here is the purchase orders that are ready to go, have been confirmed, and are ready for the shipments to be created. Now, a rule here is you can combine purchase orders that are going to the same fulfillment center, the same destination. You obviously can't combine shipments or purchase orders that are going to different fulfillment centers. So we can actually see here that we've got one going to BRS2, another one here going to BRS2, so they can be combined. It's the same with LBA4 and this one down here. Now, if you're not seeing this, especially if it's on a new account, you need to make sure you've set up your warehouse address, which is why we've got a value here for ship from. If you haven't got that, then you should go to this kind of cog settings icon up here and click on warehouse settings. And then it's just a simple case of putting in the details, contact person address of the goods that you will be sending the products from. So if we're going to focus on this BRS2 destination first, I can click on Add PO to Shipment, and then it's going to filter out any POs that are not also going to that destination. So we can conveniently see here that this one can also be added to this purchase order. So we'll click on that one as well. We can then continue to step 2. Before that, you can kind of review the contents by expanding these arrows. You can also see how many unique products are within this shipment and how many total units there are, just to clarify everything looks correct. If it doesn't, then by all means go back and revise the purchase order. You can do that, prior to creating any shipment. So we're going to proceed to step 2 now. Fairly important things to specify here. Is this a small parcel shipment? Now, this means if you're sending these products into Amazon via a courier, literally in boxes, then you would say, yes, this is a small parcel shipment. If you're not and you're sending them on pallets, which is probably going to be the most common for Amazon vendors, certainly the ones that are doing anything at scale, then you would select no, and this would structure it for a kind of less than truckload or full truckload shipment. Another very important thing to consider is the label type. Now, if you've not got any kind of automation, or you're not really sure what type of labels you need at this stage, then I would strongly recommend going for the AMZN CC option, which stands for Amazon Container Code. Now, what this is going to do is actually generate the labels for you. Anyone who's used FBA on Seller Central will be familiar with this kind of process, whereby you're telling Amazon what you're going to send in, and then it kind of sends or gives you the labels to actually place on the cartons, pallets, containers, whatever. Another option is SSCC, which is for brands that have already got a system for creating their own container codes. If you don't know what that is, then I wouldn't click on it. Now, GTIN is an interesting one. This refers to case pack barcodes. So if you've got products, and again, this will be quite common for vendors, if you've got products that are structured into case packs, inner packs, master packs, all that kind of thing, more than likely they're going to have what's called a GTIN, which is essentially a case pack barcode on any of those case packs. Now, be wary of this one, because this will only actually work if you've got a specific subscription with GS1 called GDSN. And GDSN is essentially a database of GTINs that Amazon can connect to and communicate with. However, that requires a very specific subscription, specific setup, on which basis you will know about it if you've got it. So best thing to do, at least for kind of beginners, is select the AMZN CC option to ensure that Amazon is going to produce those labels for you. For this example, I'm going to say it's a small parcel shipment, so we can continue to the next step. Now, what it's going to show you here is a breakdown of all the products that are in that purchase order or purchase orders that you've added to this shipment. It should populate certain information based on the quantities that have been ordered and accepted, and also what's in the catalogue. But what you may need to do is specify how many cartons each of those products are going to be contained within. So it's quite simple for this one. I know that there's one carton for each of these products, so I can just change that to 1. If you want, you can put a lot code in here. It's going to be an extra bit of administration from your end, because you're going to need to know what products you're actually sending in before you kind of go through this process. But if you wanted to keep a record of very specific stock you're sending into Amazon, you can put that information in here. Also, you're going to see some additional fields for different categories. So grocery, for example, you're very likely to see best before date. And whilst it's not compulsory to fill that in, it's not going to prevent you from completing the shipment if you don't fill that in. You are going to be at risk of chargebacks. And also, just from a kind of, I suppose, monitoring and quality perspective, it is best practice to obviously put those best before dates in, just to ensure that the data that Amazon has got is correct. They can take relevant action on any kind of short dated or expired goods. Because if that data isn't input, you're kind of relying on them to put it in, and they're not particularly reliable at doing that. I've not got lot codes for these products, so I'm just going to go in and just put 1 for each of these cartons. You can either confirm line by line, or you can go through the whole thing, and then at the bottom here you've got confirm all SKUs. Now, because this is a small parcel shipment, once I've done that, it's actually giving me the opportunity to input the tracking number for each of what will essentially be each of these parcels. I don't have that information. Again, that's not compulsory, so I'm going to ignore that one. and continue to step 4. Now, this is the kind of final step in terms of when is this product going to ship. So this is when you're kind of expecting it to be collected from your warehouse by your courier or carrier haulier. Doesn't really need to be accurate. The same goes for estimated delivery date. So if you've got a view on how long it's going to take for those products actually to be delivered into Amazon, then you can put that in here. Now, you're not going to be penalised if you get this information wrong. What you will be penalised for is if this delivery happens outside of the delivery window, which you'll be able to see quite clearly in the purchase order information. Typically, it's sort of 4 to 5 working days, but Amazon has been kind of, shall we say, inconsistent with delivery windows and kind of tightening things up, making things a bit more difficult for vendors over the past 18 months or so. So, yeah, just be aware that if you don't deliver the goods in within that delivery window, you're going to be hit with a late delivery chargeback, which I believe is 3% of the purchase order value. So it can be quite considerable. It's quite a bite into your margin. So being efficient, getting orders processed and out the door is very, very important on Vendor Central, less so than Seller Central, because when you create a shipment on Seller Central, there's no shipping window or delivery window. It's quite flexible in terms of when you can deliver those goods in. But because on Vendor Central, Amazon is obviously ordering the goods from you to meet their demand and demand forecast, they are quite strict in terms of when they want that stock in. And also it's important for them to be able to plan, where they're going to put stock, how they're going to kind of spread it across their fulfillment centres. And obviously the volumes that they're ordering in through vendor is quite significant. So that's, often the reason they will give for ensuring that these delivery windows are met. Next one, I'm just going to put in tomorrow's date and then, argue it's going to be delivered by Friday, which is actually the end of the shipping window on these particular orders. We've then got packing details, which is going to show the same for whether I've selected small parcel or pallet. So cartons, that's already been pre-populated based on the information I've put in the previous step. If there's any pallets, I can specify that here, and I have to say if they're stackable, unstackable or mixed. In this case, there's none, so I'm going to put 0. We've also got total estimated weight, total estimated volume. Again, these are optional. There's not going to be any penalty for not putting this information in. If by chance you've got it to hand, which is probably unlikely, then by all means put it in. If you haven't, don't worry about it. Shipment reference. This is arguably more important for kind of pallet deliveries, because you're going to have at some point your bill of lading ID. But again, you're probably not likely to have that information whilst you're doing this, because that's going to come later in your sort of order process. So I would recommend, and you can do this, you can go back in to the shipment after all this has been confirmed, and you can basically put that detail in, and it just, ties everything up for when stuff is delivered into Amazon's FCs, because essentially the bill of lading reference is kind of a key bit of information. Carrier details, there's a sort of list of quite obscure looking carrier codes in here, some that you'll probably be able to interpret. They've kind of got their abbreviated carrier codes. For this particular shipment, we're going to be using DPD. So we're going to select this one. Once that's done, you can go to confirm and submit shipment. If you're not quite happy with it, you can save it as a draft I am happy with it, so I'm going to go ahead and click confirm and submit shipment. Now, once that's completed, I actually need to move my face here because it's not so obvious, but there's a link here that you need to click to actually download any labels that have been generated. One thing to note is that the ASN, so the Advanced Shipment Notification Reference, has now been generated. This is pretty important part of this process because this ASN reference is going to appear on any labels you apply either to boxes, cartons, pallets, and when Amazon scans that, they're going to immediately be able to see what purchase orders that contains and also what the contents is. So the ASN is kind of the most important reference to come out of this process. Now, ignore all these other links, click on this one here that says shipment detail page, and then it's going to give you a summary of the shipment, but you kind of want to scroll down to the bottom, and I would recommend clicking on download or export carton data, and that's going to give you a sort of detailed view on what's actually in this order. But importantly, it's going to give you a breakdown of the products and what their respective labels are, because that isn't necessarily obvious when you're kind of looking at those labels. In terms of the labels, so there's two that you need to print at this stage. You've got the carton labels. So if you're applying labels to any cartons within a shipment, this is what is going to be generated at this stage. So you've got two options, either zebra or kind of PDF labels for desktop printers, but I think they both come out at the sort of standard 6x4 inch size, so it's going to be compatible with whatever printer you're using. And if we look at this, we can see the sort of important detail contained within this. So because these are single item cartons, it's showing the EAN on the label, which is useful for matching it up with, whatever product you're sending out. We've also got the PO reference, and then this is the Amazon container code, which is very specific to this particular carton. And we've got 6 of these on this shipment, so we're going to have 6 different container codes. So as mentioned, you want to refer to that spreadsheet if you're not certain which product is related to each label. So you'll have the sort of barcode reference in this column, and then the specific AMZN CC code in this one. We need to close this tab because we've got another one to print, which is the ASN reference, so we'll save that. And this needs to go on any shipment you're sending in. Very basic level, it's got the destination address, and it's also got the ASN reference, which they can easily scan. So as mentioned, this needs to go on every either parcel or pallet you're sending into Amazon. If it's on a pallet, it needs to go on each corner, so you've got to print it 4 times and apply it. And this is the kind of master reference that just kind of ties everything together in terms of Amazon being able to receive this stock and basically understand what it is and which purchase orders it relates to. So that's a kind of rundown of the Amazon shipment process on Vendor Central in 2024. If you've got any questions, if you're working on a slightly different setup, for example, if you've got mixed cartons, or you're using pallets, or you're working with a kind of very specific product type, feel free to reach out because we specialize in Vendor Central and operations is one of our key strong points. There are a kind of lot of nuances and potential challenges, pitfalls when it comes to Vendor Central and this process in particular. What's really important is that you have an efficient shipment process, and there's lots of ways to improve the efficiency, both at the kind of ordering level, but also when it comes to labeling, actually delivering the goods into Amazon. And also once you reach a particular scale, you'll want to seriously be considering automation, because to do this process manually, certainly when you reach a particular level, if you're dealing with, say, more than 5 to 10 purchase orders a week, that's when it becomes extremely time consuming to do this process manually. And Vendor Central isn't actually really designed for that. It is a big kind of B2B platform, and there are some very big brands trading on it, and those brands will typically use some kind of automation through EDI, but that can be complicated, expensive. There are ways of doing it more cheaply, less ambitiously than a kind of full EDI integration. So yeah, if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out to waitecommerce.co.uk and we'd be happy to help. Thank you.